Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Wellbeing web series, Recharging Your Resilience. I'm Ann Bassoni, and I'm a mental health clinician. Our topic for today is coping with grief during the holidays. A little outline of how what we're going to be discussing. The first, I'm just going to give you a brief definition of grief. Then we'll move into some tips for surviving the holiday. For those of you who are grieving and mourning, we'll talk a little bit about self-care. I also included some information for those of you who are supporting a person who is grieving and mourning, and also a little bit about grieving children, since that's a little bit different. So what is grief? Classically defined as it's a deep sorrow, especially that is caused by someone's death. I did want to emphasize, though, that it's also a conflicting feeling caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. So in other words, people who are going through a divorce, or maybe they have lost a job, or a family member is incorporated, or there is unemployment, those are topics and issues that can also lead to some grief and can come up and make the holidays difficult. This is one of my favorite analogies of grief, and it's called the ball in the box analogy. And it's pretty popular. It was on Twitter by someone named Lauren Herschel. And basically, there's three boxes that she uses. And the important thing to know is that grief it hits all of us very differently. Everybody experiences grief in a different way, and what works for you might not work for someone else. But the general theme is that it's a lot of pain, and it hits us hard, and it hits us all at once. So the other part of that is, though, that sometimes grief doesn't hit us immediately after a death or a change, but it can come up later on. So I think the thing that is hard for people to understand is that grief is something that stays with us. I don't know that we ever fully get over losing a family member or a friend or a loved one. It's something that will stay within you, though it does decrease a little bit over time. It does stay with us forever. So this analogy kind of goes along with that, and it's basically that in that first box it says life, grief, and pain, and grief is just this huge ball that takes up almost our whole being. And anytime we move, the grief ball moves and it hits pain, and we feel a lot of pain. And that pain might come through as crying or irritation, or we sleep a lot, or we're eating or drinking more, or even less. And it happens every day as we move through life. This grief is banging around. And it starts hitting it at random, and we can't ever really know when it's going to hit. And so that's the initial experience, is that it's random, and it hits when we least expect it. Can't control it. We can't stop it. The pain just keeps coming pretty regularly, no matter what you do. And oftentimes when I talk to people who come in for appointments who are grieving, that's one of the hard things, because most of us don't want to feel all that pain. We miss someone that we love, and it's hard to move forward sometimes. But I think it's normal to know that these things do take time. But with some time, the ball stops hitting that pain a little more frequently. And one example I have of that is that, my grandpa died several years ago, and he loved red pistachios. And it was probably about a year after he died. I was in Walgreens, and I was walking down an aisle, and I saw red pistachios, and don't you know, I started crying. I mean, I was boohooing in the aisle, because it reminded me, and the ball hit the pain. And so I just had to sit there and, lean into it and accept that I was hurting, and it reminded me of my grandpa. So as you go through life, the ball's still going to rattle around inside the box. It's going to be moving a lot, but the ball gets smaller. And as you go through life, not as often does it hit, but there's still going to be moments when it does. It might be random, and it might be unexpected. But one thing I think for all of us is that we know that when holidays come up, and we are moving into a lot of different holidays for a lot of different religions, and it might be an anniversary that comes up. the pain seems to increase some, especially if it's the first holiday without someone. So I wanted to talk to you some about holiday survival tips. And, I will use us a lot because I do want you to know that my dad died a year ago on Halloween, and my nephew died in June. And this will be my first Christmas without my nephew. And, I've been kind of nervous about it, just like I was nervous about the anniversary of my dad coming up. And so some of these I've just been through. And like I said, it might be true for me, it might not be for you, but hopefully there's something in here that you can find that's going to be helpful. So the big thing is to prepare in advance, and that means having a plan A and having a plan B. Plan A might be that you go to a certain event that you go on as you always have. You do the same things, but having a plan B, a backup, so that if when the day comes and are not feeling up for it, that you have an alternative plan, and that might be that you go to a movie, or you look through photo albums, or you call someone that you love. And oftentimes, just knowing that you have a backup plan can be very, very helpful. Uh, so also beware of anticipation. I took a few days off during Halloween thinking that I was going to have a hard time missing my dad. And really, this was true for me because the buildup to it was I got very nervous and I was really sad. And then I decided to honor him by thinking about the good things and sharing my good memories of him. And on the actual day, my sisters and my brother and I, we all talked and on the phone, and it was really helpful, and really we made it a very nice remembrance. So I was thinking it was going to be terrible, and it wasn't, and that can often be the case. Um, Try not to overdo. And I think that's hard on the holidays because people tend to get very anxious and they have a lot to do. I mean, you'll see people running around. I've got to buy presents, or I got to get this. I need to make that. I need to do this. And it gets very stressful. If you are trying to do all that on top of grieving and mourning, then you're going to get overwhelmed. And when we get overwhelmed, that tends to raise our stress level, and also then impact your grieving, that you probably will feel it more. So try to do some things to make life easier for you. If you feel like you need to buy presents for one of these holidays, try shopping online, or try giving a list to your family members and asking if they will go and buy it. Don't be scared to ask for help during this. Um, I like this one in one of the articles I was reading. It recommend not to do a to-do list. Instead, make it a I got it done list, so that as you check it off, you can congratulate yourself for doing something that might be a little bit harder than in the past. And then, the other thing is to say no, even after you said yes. And I like somebody compared it to having a hall pass when we were in school. That, when we have a hall pass, we can leave the room if we need to. Same type of thing. It is okay to let people know that this is a difficult holiday, that are still grieving, you're still mourning, and you can't make promises. You want to be there, but it might be that at the last minute you withdraw and ask for some understanding. Um, because there's the one thing you do not want to do is to feel like you have to do something. When we do that, oftentimes we can feel more stressed. We can even get angry and irritable. And this is not the time that you're wanting to feel that way. So it is okay to back out of things. Just give fair warning if you can. Or if you are at an event and you need to step outside, let them know I might be stepping outside just to kind of catch my breath and regroup, and don't worry about me. Or if somebody would come out with me, that would be great. Let people know what you need. Okay. Um, so some more holiday survival tips is early warning, and that is, if you are the one who usually hosts a gathering, or you are the one who always brings the fantastic casserole that everybody's waiting for, you might go ahead and tell people, this year's going to be different. And let them know what you plan to do. If you are not going to host an event, let people know so that they can make other plans. Uh, or offer alternatives. If you make a special meal and you think, I really want to go, but I'm just not up for cooking, maybe on one of the days you are feeling good, and if it's something you can freeze, go ahead and cook it and put it in the freezer so that on that day, if you're not feeling like cooking, you already have it done. The other part is having some escape plans. And that means that if you are going to go to an event and you usually drive with someone, why don't you bring your own car or have a way to get home if things get too much for you? And, Uber, what's that other one? Lyft, you can call them. You can call the taxi. You can even ask someone if they can bring you home if you don't drive. But have that out, because I think sometimes what happens when we're grieving is we can feel stuck. We can feel like we're at some place and we don't want to cry in front of people all the time, or we don't want to bring people down. So we go anyway, and our heart might just not be in it. So make sure you have a way to get out of the situation if you need. Memories and remembrance, I think this is really important, because I think for a lot of people, they don't really know how to handle grief. And the people that you think maybe are going to be there for you and listen and support you, they might not know how to do grief, how to support someone who is grieving. And it's not that they don't love you or that they care about you, but that's just not what some people do. So you want to find the people that are there, that do know how to do it and are comfortable doing it, or maybe are uncomfortable, but they're still going to try. And I encourage people to talk about memories, to share those stories about the loved one that is gone, or the special memories, or some people will set an extra plate at the table. If there's a meal involved for that person, you can raise a toast to that person, just to make sure that they are still a part of it, but not so much that they take over the event, that memory just hangs on you. So you might spend a few minutes, if you make a toast, or if you're sitting down, and say, it would be really helpful if some of you could share some special memories, some of those memories of when he made you laugh or she made you, you guys took that great trip. Ask for some memories, because sometimes people don't always know if it's okay to talk about someone who is deceased. And I can tell you from my own experience, I love it. I want to know those things. I want to know the stories. And it's also on my dad's anniversary, a friend of mine from high school sent me a card with a memory that she had when we were playing basketball, and my dad came to one of our games. And it meant the world to me, because that was remembering him, but not pretending like it wasn't a hard day. So those kind of things are okay. And I think a lot of people wonder why the first holiday is the hardest. And I think there's a lot of reasons, but I think especially because our tradition, most of us have traditions, whether it's with our family or our chosen family. And when someone dies, that can be altered, and we don't know what to expect. And for a lot of people, when we don't know what to expect, it's kind of scary, it's unnerving. And if you're already grieving, it can be really hard too. So just kind of lean into that uncertainty and realize it is okay not to know what it's going to be like. It's okay to know that you don't know exactly how you're going to respond or how you're going to be, but that you have people who love you and care about you, and you know who can call. And by that, I mean, if it's, say, a holiday where families get together, maybe you've contacted a couple friends or family and said, if I'm struggling this day, is it okay if I give you a call? Just so that they can be aware that you might do that, and that you don't call someone and they're out of the country and they can't answer or something like that. The other thing is these self-care tips. And I think one of the most important things is exercise. You want to, if you don't exercise, maybe just take a few 5-10 minute walks, just when you start feeling really down or you start thinking a lot, get those endorphins released and come back. You can do that if you have a pet, or maybe a friend will go with you, or maybe you just go by yourself. But I really recommend that each day you get up, you get dressed, you have some sort of plan for what is going to be happening that day. The other thing is sleep, and that can be very difficult for a lot of people when they're grieving. And there are some phone apps that you can use for sleep. There are yoga poses that you can use to help you sleep. Tea, things like that, just to make sure you're sleeping. If you're sleeping too much, try to get on a regular schedule so that you're getting up and going to bed at the same time, and get your rhythm going so that it's a little bit easier. The other thing is to stay hydrated. Make sure that you are getting lots of liquid drinks in you. Easy on the alcoholic drinks. We don't want too much of that, but it's okay to toast and things like that. But you do want to make sure you're getting enough water. And I put bacon on here for because food in moderation. And when I was researching some of this, I have to read this. In Germany, it's called Kummerspeck. And there's no direct German to English translation, but the word roughly translates to grief bacon or sorrow fat. And I thought that was kind of funny because it basically is saying is food is comfort. And we all know that a lot of people will turn to comfort food when they are grieving. But there are some studies that say that eating food with saturated fat can help fight off negative emotions. Now, I put in there moderation because I think a lot of us could eat a pack of bacon, but that's probably not going to be real good. So try to make sure that most of what you are doing is in moderation. Also, stress management strategy. So if there are things that you do that help you manage stress, try to be ready for that. And it can be your usual things of, prayer or meditation. It could be listening to your favorite music. Maybe it's reading a book. Sometimes I just like to light a candle and look at it. There's just something that's very soothing about looking at a flame. Uh, yeah. I was going to make a joke about arsonists, but I'm not sure that's appropriate. So just find the stress management strategy that works best for you. And whether that be an app or talking to someone or the exercise, but just try it and be prepared. There's this one thing that I just heard about a couple of years, and it's called, I think it's called jewel art or something like that, where it's basically coloring by numbers, but you're picking up a little jewel color and you're putting it in a number on a picture, and you should see the things you can make. I mean, they're beautiful. But, if that's not your thing, maybe you bring out some coloring. Maybe you do Zentangle. I got a lot of ideas, and if you want some, just let me know, and I'm happy to share more with you. But do try to quiet your mind. And the thing here is, if we try not to think about the one who's deceased, obviously we're going to. It's like when your friend taps you on the shoulder and says, don't look, and we all swing around and look. If we try to ignore it, it's going to be front and center. So it is okay to sit and really think about the person that is gone, and what you miss about them and what you remember. And my mom loves to tell this story about when I was little. She told me what I bought Dad for Christmas, because obviously I didn't buy it. And Dad kept pushing me to tell him. And then I did. And and once I did, I got really upset. And Mom likes to tell that story about how Dad started goofing around and got me back to feeling good about things. And that was something my dad was really good at, was, making me laugh. And I miss that about him. And instead of trying not to think about that, I do think about it, and it makes me feel good. But quieting your mind might mean just sitting still. It might mean, again, doing any of those stress management strategies that you like. But just check in with yourself. One of my favorite things to do is the HALT, where it's hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. Are you getting enough nourishment? Are you getting enough people time? Because hunger is not always about food. Are you angry? I mean, grief brings about a lot of anger and irritability. You can ask my coworkers and some of my friends. I was pretty irritable for a while. You check in. Are you lonely? Do you need to be around people? Do you need just to hear people's voices? And tired. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you emotionally tired or physically tired? So that's a good way to quiet your mind and kind of check in with yourself. And then who is on your support team? Know the people that have time to listen, who want to listen. I have one friend who does not do grief very well, but she is great at making me laugh. And when I just need to laugh, I'm going to call her. I don't want her to get philosophical on me. I don't want her to try to, say it's okay or anything like that. I just want to laugh. She's the one I call. So know who to call, and make sure that they're going to be around. Um, and the other thing I thought of when I was thinking about self-care tips is, and I refer a lot of people to Amy Rodquist Cadell's, what was it, when the Courage to Live Well, she was a keynote, and I believe that is on YouTube. And on it, she talks a lot about practicing gratitude and ways to do that. And it is something that I absolutely love and absolutely recommend for people, because even though I know life is not great, I can find little things that I am grateful for. And sometimes they're big. And what I like about the way she describes it is she also talks about not just saying, I'm grateful for a home, but why are you grateful for that home? Or, I'm grateful that I went to work today. Well, why? What happened at work? What made it good? So she goes a little bit deeper with it. And if you have not seen her presentation, I highly recommend it, because it's a good one. So for those of you who are supporting a person who is grieving, boy, it's, everybody grieves differently. And it is okay, be supportive as you can. Ask them what they need. Sometimes they don't know what they need. One of the best advice I got was my friend's son died in a drowning. And everybody was there for the funeral, and my college roommate and I went down the week after to help her. And the laundry was piled up, and the house was a mess, and we didn't ask, we just did. So if you know someone is grieving, you might just show up and say, I just wanted to sit and visit. Let me put a load in for you, and do a load of laundry for them. Or if you see the dishes stacked up, just say, what, would you sit in here while I do these dishes? So in other words, because if you ask, most of us are going to say, no, we're okay. You don't need to do that. Or people will say, I don't know. I don't know what I need. But sometimes support is just sitting there watching TV with them, listening to music with them. You know your friend, your loved one, and try to do the best you can just to be supportive. That along the lines of the offer to help, you can do that. It might be, do you want me, I'm going to this store, do you want me to look for any presents for anybody? I'm going to the grocery, I'm going to bring you back something else. You might bring them food, any way that you can find to help. And when you do, make sure you have some time to listen, because sometimes people want to talk and you don't want to hurry somebody when they want to talk about a memory or how they're feeling. So make time to listen to that person and stay in touch with them. Even if they're not answering the phone, sometimes a text message is nice, or a voicemail letting them know you're thinking of them, or even sending a card. These are all things to let somebody know, I'm thinking about you and I care about you. And then the other part of this is that you might include them in your celebrations. Never make them feel forced. Just say, would you like to, we're getting together for dinner. Would you like to come over? Or, we're going to watch some Hallmark TV show. Would you like to come over? Or would you mind if we come over and watch something with you, or we listen to music? Just try to include them, knowing that sometimes they might say no, sometimes they might say yes and back out at the last minute. And then even more importantly is to check with them after the holidays, because there might be a lot of people checking with them during the holidays, and after the holidays can be just as hard. So make sure you're checking in with them then as well. Children are, a special group, obviously. So a great website for information about grieving children is the National Alliance for Grieving Children. They've got a lot of information about helping children grieve, not just during the holidays, but at any point. But it's important to know, the developmental level of the children. If your age is 3 to 5, then what they're thinking about death is just that someone is somewhere else. They don't think it's permanent. They think that person's going to come back. If they're 5 to 9, they are probably going to personify it, the Grim Reaper, ghosts, things like that. And then from 9 to 10, death, usually they know it's universal and irreversible. But you want to kind of be aware of those different developmental levels. And I think it's important to involve kids in some of the decisions you're making. If you don't feel like going to the family gathering, but the children want to go, ask a family member if they can come get the kids. If you are making some different plans, you might ask the kids what they want to do. What do they think? How would they like to remember the person who's deceased during the holidays? Because they might come up with some ideas that you didn't think of, or you might not even have thought would be helpful, but they do. So it's good to ask them what they think and what they might want. And then also, you want to kind of keep a routine as much as you can. I know holidays sometimes throw us off routine. So as much as you can, a routine is very helpful to a child that is grieving, to most children, but especially when they're grieving, because it brings back some of this is what they expected, this is normal, and that can be very helpful to them. You still want to be flexible, though. I've made a list of all the sources where I got this information for this presentation, and it's here. But what I will do, Jacob is going to send me an email of everybody that logged in to view this, and I'll be happy to send you this list of resources with links so that you can look up the ones that seem relevant to you and do some more reading on them. Or you're welcome. I don't know how many of you know, but at my program is the Work Plus Life Connections program, and all UK employees and their sponsored dependents and retirees get 5 free visits per fiscal year. And we now have 4 therapists, and we're all pretty versed at working with people who are grieving. And if you'd like to make an appointment and talk about this more, please do. You just go to the Work Life website, and we're all listed there, and you can pick one of us, and it shows when we are available. So I'd really encourage you to do that. I tried to see if it was up, but Hospice, which now calls themselves Care Navigators, they offer Christmas and Thanksgiving holiday remembrance things where maybe they're making an ornament, or they come and have people who are all grieving come together and really have a celebration. So if you go to Care Navigators Lexington, they should have a list of dates up soon when they will be offering that. They also offer a lot of groups and individual. If you are grieving someone who has died, I believe it's in the last year or 18 months, you can get free counseling from them. I utilized that when my grandpa died, and it was a great service. I can't say enough about them. And the family member doesn't have to have been part of hospice. Just if you need some grief support, it's a wonderful resource. We do want you to know that Ryan Mason is going to be here next month talking about making repetitions the new holiday tradition, physical activity and connections. And there's a link there that you can go to sign up. And he's a good presenter, so I would recommend that you all sign up. And if you guys have questions or comments or just want to share, now is the time. Let's see. What would you suggest to help a parent grieving? I'm in another state and can't be there. Ooh, that's a great question. What are some tips? Okay. I think you make sure that you communicate with your parent in the way that they're most comfortable. That might be a phone call. I like to send just little cards saying, I'm thinking of you. You might send them some memories of whoever your parent is grieving, if you have them, and share them with them. But I think the big thing is really checking in as much as you can. And as much as it doesn't bother. Like if it's too much, I hope your mom would say, okay, enough, or your parent would say enough. But you just reach out. I think you reach out both in ways that you can talk to them and texting them, and that also you send them some letters and share some memories. And then the other thing is also ask them what they need. How can I help you? I'm in Kentucky and you're in California. How can I help you? Because I want to be there for you. And sometimes that does a whole lot, just that they know you're thinking of them. What was the name of the gratitude YouTube video? That, if you look up Amy Rodquist Coday, The Courage to Live Well, The Courage to Live Well. And it was the keynote for a wellness week of wellness. So if you will send me an email, I'd be happy to look that up and send you a link to it. Maybe I'll just add that to the list of resources I send so that you all can see it, because it is really great. Bacon, I know, bacon's always a good idea in moderation. But I just love that the German language has a word for it, because, I think we would call it maybe comfort eating, but anytime I see that someone is promoting bacon, I'm on that. Anybody else have questions? There's everybody grieves differently. I think that's the big thing, and just to know that however you are grieving, it's your way, and you don't want anybody to tell you to get over it. There's nothing really worse to say. Are there warning signs for grief? There are symptoms of grief, which can include being sad, emotions are up and down, crying, irritability, isolation, not doing the things you want to do. Some of the things that are similar to depression, but more specific to grief. Do you have any other tips for people who may be grieving something other than a death? Oh, yes. I remember when my parents divorced, my friends were thinking I was so lucky that I was going to get to have 2 Christmases. And I remember thinking, I wish I wasn't lucky that way. But if there's an estrangement or another type of loss, make sure that you hopefully have some people that you can spend time with. And it might not be your family. It might be your chosen friends or family. If it's possible, if it's a negative estrangement, I think some of the same things. Maybe you could write the person a letter, but don't send it. But write a letter and talk about missing them, or how this is, how you're feeling about being apart on this holiday. Just to kind of get these things out of your head, because I have found that obviously as a therapist, talking really helps, but also writing can be very cathartic as well. Just make sure you don't mail it to them, and just have freedom of thought to write whatever you want. If you can also, if it's appropriate and you want to, you can send them something, send them some nice, I was thinking of you. It depends, I think, on what the situation is. But you're right. I'm glad you brought that up, because divorce can be a difficult time, or separation. Those things can be very difficult. Just like if you've lost your job and you can't buy presents like you used to, or you don't have money to travel like you used to. Acknowledge those things. It's okay. Any other questions? Well, I appreciate you all checking in and being willing to listen to this. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or call, and I'll talk with you one-on-one. And I wish you all a good holiday season, no matter what's going on.